Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, let's go over the market. The market is about to close in just a couple of seconds. Tesla looking like it'll be closing at just under $201 per share, which is going to be doing us a green day, of course, of about 1.77%, which compared to the market itself, pretty respectable outperformance for the most part, with the market being essentially flat, pretty much not moving at all today. I mean, it moved a lot today, but in terms of ending the day, it wasn't really all of that changeful, I guess. There wasn't a lot of change. Anyway, the point is the fact that Tesla did close just barely above 200, but there are still definitely some warning signs, but there is some potential upside left for Tesla, a little bit more before I believe further downside continues. So we'll go over that as usual, guys. If you enjoyed the video, find it useful, helpful, informative, whatever, don't forget to hit that like button. And of course, as per usual, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Make your own decisions, do your own research, all that stuff. But let's just jump right into it. So Tesla's pretty much following exactly what we talked about way back over here, where I talked about how, one of the two options was to go back to 200, come up to around 210, maybe as high as 213. Then most likely from there, we reject, come down. And then I talked about how I believe that Tesla, I think I said it yesterday, actually, how I personally believe that Tesla, will most likely come down to about 190, maybe enter the 180s just barely, and then most likely come back up to 200. And that's essentially exactly what it did today. It came exactly down to this line right here, the white line, completely didn't move it whatsoever. It pretty much came exactly to it, bounced exactly off of it. And then pretty much went to 200, got rejected several times, and just barely found a way to close just barely above 200 to end the day off again. Not a very convincing close above 200, mainly because it's literally 286 cents, right? It's not meaningfully above, but nonetheless, still pretty decent. And this to me opens up potential for a little bit more upside before I think the next rejection occurs. And then we make our way down, right? So on top of that, you can also see on the 1 hour, which is one of my favorite, time frames to look at for the most part, which gives you kind of like a good, look as to, what can happen over the next, like, let's say maybe a week or so, maybe, give or take a couple of days. There's no like signs of a bullish divergence or anything like that, right? Still making lower lows. So the stock is still not looking, overly bullish. It doesn't look like it's ready to really get an actual bounce just yet, right? If we go even longer time frames, it actually looks even worse, right? Just nothing looking very bullish about the longer time frames whatsoever. On the daily as well, right? Just looking ultimately quite bearish still. The candle on the daily, I will admit, is a pretty nice looking candle. This definitely is a pretty beautiful looking candle, but these candles don't always play out. And I want to make this very clear, right? So for instance, on the SPY, you can see, it had a very bearish candle, which had a fairly bearish day. I mean, it did recover, but ultimately still went red. And the SPY actually had a very bullish looking candle, right? This is usually a bullish candle, which is pretty much the exact same candle Tesla has today, but clearly it didn't mean anything, and SPY just completely sold off even further. So this was just a massive bull trap, right? So I just want to make that very clear that this doesn't, even though this is technically a bullish candle and the bullish candle close, it doesn't mean it has to play out that way, right? Just keep that in mind, guys. It's very important. And the wick on the top is a little bit long, a little bit longer than I would like to see as well. But, all that being said, again, just take it for what it is, right? And understand that it's not everything. It doesn't mean everything. Now, personally, like I said, I do believe that because we closed above 200, I definitely think that there is some potential upside for Tesla. Not too much upside, but I definitely wouldn't be surprised if Tesla comes up to around 205. Now, I'll give you guys a reason as to why I think 205 is my overall target for Tesla before another rejection, and in my opinion, another fall back down, right? 205 is because, number one, I do believe that we are going to be retesting this trend that we broke. So as you can see, back when we were rising up over here, we broke above this little trend right here, right, which was as a resistance right here. You can see several times, got rejected, broke above it, acted as a support, support, and almost acted as a support. It did for a little bit before it ultimately finally broke down, right? So this was a massive resistance previous, became a support, and now in theory it should become resistance. And I think that's kind of what that's going to happen again once we come up to around this 205 level, essentially just retesting this breakdown in this case. Similar to how when we broke up, we retested it, came up, retested it again. I think the same thing will happen, just flipped, right? And that's what more or less I think will happen right here. So, that's about 205. Another thing to kind of, follow that up is, of course, if we take this Fibonacci on the 1 hour, right, determining kind of, short-term bounces, for instance, right, which in this case, it does seem like we're in one right now, very short-term bounce. You can see, the zero point 0.5 is pretty much sitting at 205, right? So that's another level that, I am going to be definitely paying attention to. There is definitely a possibility that we don't go actually higher than 201, 202, let's just say. We already got rejected by this candle here once, which is the 0.382. And there's definitely a chance that we actually get rejected there once again and we don't go any higher. But I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if we do come up to around the 0.5, which again is around that 205 level, which again, being the 0.5 Fibonacci and the retest of this breakdown, it just kind of makes sense to me. And I will personally be looking at that level before potentially entering shorts or puts, I guess, on Tesla. So we'll see though. I'm not entirely sure if I will or will not. I do have a sold call, a singular sold call on Tesla that I have out for next Friday, that I sold yesterday when Tesla was around 199 or something like that. And I had that sold call at 180 that I am just going to be holding. That's my only bullish position right now. Oh, sorry, sold put. Sorry, not call. I meant sold put on Tesla, which is going to be my only, bullish position I have on Tesla. Otherwise, I am pretty much all cash and just patiently waiting for the drop down to where the ultimate price target, which I did talk about several times. But to reiterate, it is going to be somewhere around anywhere between, honestly, around 160-ish to maybe like as low as 140. That general range, I think, is where our Tesla will ultimately come down to, and where I will personally be very excited to potentially start adding shares again, assuming it of course reacts the way I kind of want to see it, right? Which again, as you can see, is around the 0.5 to the 618 level is what I am personally looking at. Now, back to the 1 hour very quickly. In case you're someone that's a bull and you for some reason want Tesla to go even higher, I would say the best case scenario for Tesla on this bounce will be as high as about 207 to 208. That is very possible, but that to me tells me that it probably will happen maybe, Friday. So for instance, if tomorrow is a really nothing day, let's say tomorrow we just go sideways, really doing a whole lot of nothing, then that tells me that Friday maybe will be the day we actually retest this instead, and we go up to maybe 207, 208. That is definitely another possibility, but ultimately around 205, give or take a couple of points, is the level I am looking at for Tesla to retrace to up here, going upwards before rejection and before making our way back down, right? The VIX, you can see a little bit of a red day today. There's definitely a chance that the VIX does have a bit of a downward trend from here. We'll see this gain some rejection, potentially a gap fill or whatever on the VIX, which is definitely a possibility. I did day trade SPY a little bit today as well, and SPY is looking very peculiar here. It's very hard to determine how SPY is looking. It's looking like it potentially might actually break out from this. You can see, I had a bit of a false breakout twice essentially, but then this candle looks like it potentially wants to break out. So SPY is looking a little peculiar here, but essentially as long as SPY is under 400, I am ultimately much more bearish than bullish. If SPY can reclaim 400 and actually hold that as opposed to having this little fake breakouts, then I would personally be a little bit more bullish for the short term for now, and SPY actually has a chance to go up to 410 once again, which if that happens would pretty much potentially change my thesis around Tesla. Now in a week, of course, we also have Tesla's investor day, which is why I also don't think Tesla's just going to straight up collapse from here. I do think that there is going to be some strength holding Tesla up until after investor day happens. A lot of people are going to be buying Tesla, probably holding and buying any dips at all, on hopium essentially over investor day, which happens pretty much all the time for Tesla on any major event until the ultimate sell-off post the event, unless something absolutely major gets announced, which of course is always a possibility. But all that being said and done, ladies and gentlemen, that is kind of what I'm seeing as of right now. Taking a very quick look at the major indicators that I'm sure a lot of people would like to see, that again I personally don't use, but people like to see it. We have the 21 EMO, which is still catching up to us, so that's going to potentially act as a support. Initially, very good potential that it will, which is around 187 right now. But if we break back down under this on the daily, that's when I do believe the sell-off will begin, and I think it'll slowly keep catching up to us until we ultimately break out of this downward trend, which is this yellow line, the bottom yellow line, which the 21 EMA is now coinciding with. So that's going to be the major support. But again, if broken, I think that's when there's going to be a lot of room to fall all the way back down to these levels down here, because there's not a lot of weight supporting Tesla. It's kind of just hang off a cliff in all honesty, right? So just keep that in mind, guys. It's very important to understand. The Bollinger Bands are catching up to us. You can see that they are starting to slowly kind of, make a little, I guess, cupping formation, if you will. They're trying to slowly converge in on each other, which is going to slowly contract and then eventually, of course, expand into a major move, which I personally believe will be to the downside. We have the 100-day moving average really just below us. We have the 50-day moving average slowly trying to catch up to us, sitting at about 155, which again, wouldn't be surprised if that's the level we ultimately come down to. And the 5 and the 10 moving average, which we are currently below, which is a little bit bearish for the short-term momentum, but they are pretty much sitting at 203 and 205 respectively. So that's pretty much, again, 205 being the major level, which I believe was, that's where the 10 day is actually sitting at 203. So we'll see. But ultimately, again, my main target right now is about 205, where I personally think the rejection will happen. And I think from there we will go even lower. Ultimately, doesn't have to happen literally the next day, but I think over the next few weeks, I think the target is definitely going to be somewhere down here. But that is essentially what I'm seeing, guys. Let me know what you think down below. If you enjoyed the video, find it useful, helpful, informative, whatever, don't forget to hit that like button. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one tomorrow. Peace.